I'm on, y'all need to give me a break because my blood pressure is real high. I keep telling y'all, leave me alone.
The Green Man Challenge is all about generational health. We trying to make 10K of a day a bare minimum, you heard? 10K a day of vitamin A, the bare minimum. What? In fact, as the divine soil, we trying to turn you into a plant. We want the various chlorophylls to be in your blood 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We want you to feel the benefit of what it feels like to build a circulating pool of pigments. A circulating pool of pigments. Now, you've never, ever felt your body with a full bloodstream of pigments 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. This is a brand new level of health to reach, brand new level of mental health and cognitive ability. Pass these seeds on. The Green Man. Yeah. And then there's that. We're going to make sure that your insides are clean.
Supply and demand. Demand is the desire consumers have for a good or service. The more people who want a good or service, the higher the demand for it. Supply is the total amount of a good or service available for consumption. Supply and demand have a big impact on the prices of product.
Time is money. You are what you buy. What are you spending your time on?
So early on, I started jumping around from the article to understanding the body as electric. And now we're trying to clean it up. And bring some semblance of continuity to what we're talking about, right? And that is the evolution of the idea of skin health, along with the evolution of the idea of the body being electric. And the reason those two things are important to understand in relationship to one another is because electricity, right? We go back to our motto, right? The motto is plasma conducts electricity. Plasma conducts electricity. Moving electric fields creates magnetic fields. Alternating electric and magnetic fields creates light, right? Something to that effect, right? That's about it, right? But so basically, if you have light, at some point, you have to have the conversation, or if you have electricity, at some point, you have to have the conversation of light. If you have electricity, you have to have a light conversation. If you have electricity, you have to have a magnetism conversation, which are relatively missing from the popular conversation in terms of the things that most impact our health. Even though if we actually break down the food and we actually break down the idea of what health is, there's always been this association of light and health and sickness. And it's kind of evolved side by side with where science is now, that, makeup, topical ointments, acne programs, like these is multi-billion dollar industries in and of themselves. Multi-billion dollar industries. specialized dermatology, cosmetic surgery, right? All of these things involving the skin to make yourself look, you know, in the smallest part of the financial pie associated with the skin health is the actual skin health. The largest portions of the financial pie is really more about looking younger, which and many times it's not in alignment. Looking younger is not always about looking healthier or making the healthier choice, right? Because it's not always a healthier choice to opt to get some sort of like Botox or injection or plastic surgery or whatever the case may be, versus trying out an alternative, you know, diet and, you know, movement program and all of that kind of stuff. You know what I'm saying? New habits, new routines, right? That they may be totally counterintuitive for a lot of people. You know what I'm saying? But there's a reason why those are considered cosmetic surgery, superficial, right? And so long term, it may be more intelligent for a lot of those people to have chosen to go the natural route versus.
Peace and blessings out there to everybody. My name is Dr. EnQi, the founder of the Melanin versus Diabetes movement and ministry. Our goal is to fight diabetes by creating a biochemically literate society, one book at a time, one person at a time, one household at a time. Join us now by going to Amazon.com and getting all of the books, getting all of the books that you can afford, even if you can't read them all. Share them with family, share them with loved ones. Let's begin the study. And if you need tutoring sessions are available at AmericanHealer.website. I can give you one-on-one tutoring through these books. Let's build a biochemically literate society, one person at a time. Thanks in advance.
All right, so hold on. Let me let's go into this book real quick. EnQi is the pulse of the culture. I know y'all can't see that. There we go. So when I say that, I'm not talking about EnQi is the pulse of the culture right now, because people doing all night Dr. EnQi videos and you know, the conversation and the chatter and the, you know. We in this book right now. Jump the page. I want you to jump over the page. Hold on. I'm going to tell you right now. It's an important article. We got a few important articles, but I think this one is particularly important for the conversation.
Peace to the family. This is Abdul Ali, candidate for U.S. House District 12 here in Charlotte, North Carolina. Let's just be real, folks. The Democrats have destroyed our major cities. Their policies have made us less safe. They've given us less economic opportunity, and they've provided less educational opportunities for our children. And that's why I'm running for Congress, because I know what it takes to improve these issues. I've got great working relationships already in D.C. I've spent the last 10 years of my life building my political resume so that one of us, somebody who thinks like we do, could get into DC and make a difference. I want you to visit aliforcongress.com to find out more about my campaign. The Democrats have already done enough, and now they're putting illegal aliens in front of people like you and me, folks whose ancestors built this country and made it what it is today. So again, I'm asking you to support me in my run for U.S. House District 12 here in North Carolina. You don't have to live in North Carolina to support, because what happens in Congress affects the entire country.
It ain't no fun when the rabbit got the gun, you heard?
Faith and love. Love and faith. Faith and love. Peace and blessings out there to everybody. My name is Dr. EnQi, the founder of the Melanin versus Diabetes movement and ministry. Our goal is to fight diabetes by creating a biochemically literate society, one book at a time, one person at a time, one household at a time. Join us now by going to Amazon.com and getting all of the books, getting all of the books that you can afford, even if you can't read them all. Share them with family, share them with loved ones. Let's begin the study. And if you need tutoring sessions are available at AmericanHealer.website. I can give you one-on-one tutoring through these books. Let's build a biochemically literate society, one person at a time. Thank you.
What am I looking for? What am I looking for? Oh, I know what I'm supposed to do. There we go. Good thing I have my grocery shopping list. Don't leave home without it.
All right, so in that book right there, Pulse of the Culture, the book on your left, the orthorexia book, on page 150, using archival data, we conducted a secondary analysis to examine race differences in the relation of serum vitamin A, C, E, and beta carotene to insulin resistance. Fasting insulin and glucose, high sensitivity C-reactive protein, and leukocyte count in 176 non-smoking healthy white and African American adults aged 18 to 65. All right, so this is the clear, straightforward, over the top scientific method. This is how it's done. You know, like this is we hypothesized that micronutrient concentrations would be associated with early risk markers of cardiometabolic diseases in a race-dependent manner. Fasting blood samples were analyzed for micronutrients, insulin, glucose, high sensitivity C-reactive protein, and leukocyte count were analyzed. Insulin resistance was estimated using the homeostatic model assessment, After adjusting for age, body mass index, gender, education level, use of supplements, alcohol, leisure time, physical activity, menopause status, and total cholesterol, we observed that beta carotene was significantly associated with insulin resistance and fasting insulin in a race-dependent manner. I'm going to read that back again. After adjusting for age, body mass index, gender, educational level, use of vitamin supplements, alcohol, leisure time, physical activity, menopausal status, and total cholesterol, we observed that beta carotene was significantly associated with insulin resistance and fasting insulin in a race-dependent manner. Among African Americans, lower beta carotene levels were associated with higher estimates of insulin resistance and fasting insulin. My name is Minister EnQi. I am the naturopathic doctor and the spokesman for the Melanin vs. Diabetes Ministry. Every time you go to the supermarket without the electrician grocery shopping list, it's like putting a loaded gun to your head. Stop playing Russian roulette with your life. Help us make America great again. Learn how to save time. Learn how to save money with the electrician grocery shopping list on Amazon now. Go to Amazon now. The life you save may be your own. All right. So again, here's where we have relationships that scientific data is correlating in terms of, now with this conversation, very hyper specific to pigment, specifically in terms of the relationship of skin color to ethnicity. Then from there, metabolism, diet, even intelligence quotient, education level, things like that factored in to vitamin A levels. And then from there, vitamin A levels to insulin resistance. And you know what all that road leads to: cardiovascular disease, cancer, brain disease, blah, 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 all the way down the line. Which is a large part of the reason why I played, you know, that early video showing, you know, how we put that questionnaire together in almost like a trolling sense before, you know, trolling was even, you know what I'm saying, but almost in a trolling kind of sense, but to probe the public and just demonstrate, listen, in these small little pockets of people where we have certain types of conversations about health and fitness and the difference between health and fitness and spiritual health and mental health and all of these different connections and raising our children and all of these different, we become hyper aware of certain subjects that John Q. Public is still largely in the dark about. They don't have a clue. We may think of some of these subjects as basic subjects, or, you know, now there's obviously levels of in depth that you can go, or there's levels of depth that you can take a person to in terms of a more nuanced conversation surrounding any one particular subject or science or whatever the case may be. But just even being familiar with vocabulary or terminology or certain words, you see, when I take the camera and the microphone out into the public, whether that's because people had so many different ideas and misconceptions. Like, oh, well, if you ask black folks, then you'll get people say, oh, well, that's only in the black community. No, let me take you to a white community. Let's go into a poor white community. Let's go into a wealthy white community. Let's go to white folks in the black community. Like, let's go to black folks that's in the white community. Like, let's interview a little bit of everybody so that you can see this level of ignorance is widespread. And the level of ignorance is widespread because no one's going to really invest the time and the money into educating us about us except for us. And we have to be self-motivated to do that. So as a body of people, the motivation for the majority of the people has to come from the minority of people, right? That can start with 1, igniting 3 to ignite 5 to ignite 10. You know what I'm saying? You don't need 1 million people to wake up in the morning and just start doing the thing, but you do need a spark to start, and then, people to focus some energy in that to fan the flame, but so that's what we're doing, you know what I'm saying, in terms of, just going back to the foundation. Showing the relationship between pigment and diabetes. And now fast forward to the last few videos, we were discussing the aura and the relationship of your complexion and the analogies of light or bright or clear being reflective of something relating to aura being more than just myth or, a pseudo spiritual term. Is there some degree of science or information or data that corroborates in a scientific way the idea of aura, or so I think there is, and I think that that's the conversation we're kind of having, threading the needle, because not only is it an interesting conversation in and of itself, it connects other parts of an important larger tapestry that we need to get to and familiarize ourselves with and start to have conversations at home, in the barbershop. Like, these need to become common. That's how we make information like current events. Current events is an important thing, but what are the current events that you report? Like, everybody's into that. That's what gossip is. Gossip is unsubstantiated current events. Gossip is current events that's so current they can't even be substantiated. So, you have a large amount of what's considered to be gossip to be made up, and then gossip loses credibility, et cetera, et cetera. But current events is important. And depending on what our minds are, because at one level or another, we're all at peace with the magnetic, right? We all attract our universe to us. And so the things that are current events. So for instance, current events might include Steph Curry just signing a $60 million basketball contract to some people. Some people are just hearing that for the first time right now. Like, oh, wow, that's crazy. That's current events for some people, because the world that they surround themselves in, that's the type of information they will be acclimated. Oh, wow, that's... For some people, they live in a world where 3,000 new types of neurons have just been discovered. So they're exploring that like new real estate. Like they're deep into the recesses of the mind, and they wake up and go to sleep to articles and videos and books and writings about neurology and neurochemistry and anatomy and new ways to stimulate neurogenesis and all of those types of concepts, right? Neuroplasticity and neurological development in the children and all of those things. There's somebody that's waking up right now and, in their world, their current events is, the YSL case, what's happening with Little Woody, or, some people are waking up and they're in the middle of, a 4-day running debate about Kamala Harris being black, or is Kamala Harris not black? right? I think because the world wants Kamala Harris to be black right now, that Kamala Harris is going to be black for the moment. And then if people elect Kamala, they're going to be very disappointed because she's going to rob them of their dreams worse than the Obama. You know, I think that because Obama, first man of color, you know, that we can, you know, that, okay, this is a black president. Like, you know, we had a conspiracy. This is a black.
For a long time, African-centered scholars and academics have pressurized Egyptian antiquities to allow for the testing of skin pigmentation. This can be done via the measurement of the concentration of melanin to ascertain the exact skin tone of mummified individuals. Understandably, Afrocentric anthropologists have always been confident in the knowledge that ancient Egyptians will cluster among the same racial stock as modern Africans. Esteemed historian and physicist Dr. Cheikh Anta Diop developed a simple melanin dosage test that would be able to return the exact living complexion from any mummy based on a minuscule sample of the epidermis. What's important to note here is that melanin concentration is responsible for skin pigmentation. The more melanocytes present in skin, the darker an individual will be. Diop himself stated, although the epidermis is the main site of the melanin, the melanocytes penetrating the derm at the boundary between it and the epidermis, even where the latter has mostly been destroyed by the embalming materials, show a melanin level which is non-existent in the white-skinned races. In the case of the mummies sampled by Diop, in spite of some significant melanin degradation, they still possessed a concentration of melanocytes well within the dark-skinned ranges, normal for black Africans, but considerably beyond the accessible range for Eurasian peoples. Regarding the origin of his samples, Diop continues, the samples I myself analyzed were taken in the physical anthropology laboratory of the Musée de l'Homme in Paris off the mummies from the Marietta excavations in Egypt. For 2 years past, I have been vainly begging the curator of the Cairo Museum for similar samples to analyze. No more than a few square millimeters of skin would be required to mount a specimen. Naturally, his attempts to advance this test have faced staunch resistance from the gatekeepers of Egyptology, who only benefit from the lack of transparency in a shameless attempt to perpetuate the myth of racial ambiguity. This allows them to make estimations and promote reconstructions that are illogically and politically based on the current ethnically divergent population of Egypt, as opposed to their actual complexion based on a consistent and measurable variable that is easily acquired. However, more recently, during an excavation headed by the German Institute for Archaeology in Cairo in the year 2000, researchers sought to carry out anthropological and paleopathological analysis of the human remains from 3 tombs of the nobles of the necropolis of Thebes West. An additional study was conducted by Makota and Vermeeren, published in 2005. The study sought to test the quality of methods of rehydration for mummified tissue. In the study, samples were taken from a pool of 273 mummies dated from the New Kingdom. Samples were taken from each organ of each of the mummies. During analysis of the skin samples, biologists noted that skin sections showed particularly good tissue preservation. Although much of the epidermis had already separated from the dermis, the remaining epidermis often was preserved well. The basal epithelial cells were packed with melanin as expected for specimens of Negroid origin. In essence, the epidermis was consistent with black or Negroid African groups based on the density of the melanin. This was the only conclusive assumption made alluding to ethnicity during the study, since its purpose was to compare methods of rehydration. This objective conclusion gives a silent nod to the tireless efforts of Diop and his protégés, who always knew that given the opportunity to test, the ancient Egyptians would be proven to be amongst the same ethnic stock as their African brethren. Thank you for joining me on The King's Monologue.
Purple phase not only regrows beta cells, but a part of the mechanism it uses to regrow beta cells is melanogenesis. Yes, in the world where your melanin, your pigment system has been attacked, you now have an equalizer. Purple phase, AmericanHealer.website. What are you waiting for? Go to AmericanHealer.website now and get you some.
Somewhere between he didn't do anything for black people and black people may have raised the bar too high in terms of what they thought he could do in the first place is where the truth lies. In this instance, it'd be more obvious and gut-wrenching for the people that might really truly believe, because she's in office right now. She hasn't done anything. Right? But anyway, these are current events for some people. Right? These are current events for some people. For some people, current events is figuring out something new about the anatomy of a microtubule, or just anything. What new guns have dropped, or like people build their world based on what they put their attention to, right? What you pay attention to, right? What you invest time into, right? That's what people's worlds are built around. So consideration, once you start going back to body mass index, gender, education level, use of supplements, alcohol intake, leisure time, physical activity, menopause status. Menopause status, that's right? That's a compound division, right? Because menopausal status is different amongst women, but totally different amongst women and men, right? So, but the bottom line, though, is we're definitely showing in black and white, showing and proving in black and white some of the more nuanced connections that still require people's attention, people's time, people's focus, people's support, right? To address these things, right? So let's go back to the book real quick. After adjusting for age, body mass index, gender, education level, use of vitamin supplements, alcohol intake, leisure time, physical activity, menopausal status, and total cholesterol, we observed that beta carotene, aka otherwise known as vitamin A. So just in case you don't know, when you hear beta carotene, that's vitamin A, right? The active form of vitamin A, or one of the active forms of vitamin A that your body uses, right? All right, so after adjusting for age, body mass, blah, 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 right? We observed that beta carotene was significantly associated with insulin resistance and fasting insulin in a race-dependent manner. Among African Americans, lower beta carotene levels were associated with higher estimates of insulin resistance and fasting insulin, whereas these same associations were not significant for whites. Race also significantly moderated the relation of vitamin C to leukocyte count, with lower vitamin C being associated with higher leukocyte count only in African Americans, but not whites. This is not conjecture anymore. That's why I'm saying we really have to understand these connections. Even when I go back to, a couple of weeks ago, I said they jacking the whole slang. I seen it happen to Kane, 3 cuts in your eyebrow. They jacking the whole slang. Melanin versus diabetes is literally talking about a large part of the skin, but going beyond the skin, because your skin sensitivity, your skin's ability to produce, metabolize, conduct electricity, light, magnetism, all of those things are regulated by the pigment. And the main pigment that does that is your melanin. Like that's the star of the show, right? Is the melanin. So, changing the conversation from melanin versus diabetes to skin health controlling metabolic disease, like that's literally, just a play on words, right? So we have the pioneering, focal, the pioneering research with a focus on how pigment or how skin health relates to metabolic illnesses, diseases, aging, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? We've been making these associations. And so that may be where hopefully all of these things are now, you starting to get some continuity between the earlier conversations of Dr. Sebi, Robert Becker, those concepts of the body being electric from Dr. Sebi's side with the food, from Robert Becker's side with the anatomy, more so putting those two things together, looking at how pigment functions, the basic conversation from the Greco-Roman period and beyond in terms of the humors, complexion, and then humors even being no longer used, right, to describe the fluids of the body. The body now has, like, we've got more tools. So with more tools become better analyzation and, with better analysis of data and tools to examine what we've examined, researching, information, more accuracy. So now all of the fluids, or a much larger majority of the fluids, have their own identities. So we don't need the humors anymore. And so humor has now merged into a term associated with a state of consciousness or a state of being, even if only temporarily. Humor now is associated with funny, laughter, right? Jokes, comedy, sense of humor, right? That's where humor merged to. So even that evolution of the term from the fluids of the body that build up the chemistry to something that you also have an allusion, to the emotional or, the chemistry between people. And so there's a lot of different, comparisons and metaphors that, you can look at. But, for our goal, our perspective, I was just trying to find those through ways to where we can see those connections. So now when we're looking at vitamin C, right? Because again, for me, it was a no-brainer. If we're looking at different levels of pigment throughout the body, right? And we've already broken this down in the various books, right? But if we're looking at different levels of pigment in the body, and the pigments all have different functions and blah, 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 clearly there must be a distinction between cytokine production, myokine production, energy requirements, utilization, recycling, just so many smaller nuanced aspects of how your body is going to actually work that are contingent on first accepting
period. You just got to have the nutrients. So are you going to pay $1,000 to have this nutrient profile circulating in your blood, or you going to pay $65?
I'm on, y'all need to give me a break because my blood pressure is real high. I keep telling y'all, leave me alone.
From the Bronx, but I live in the D now, of course, with the, Detroit. You went from the Bronx to Detroit. Bronx to Detroit. On 58th Street. You was trying to keep it hood. I wrote this textbook. It's gonna be a lecture. This textbook, yeah. So go ahead, do it.
Did you start getting into the herbs?
Daughter had got run over by a car. She was 4 years old, and they said she would never walk again. Her neck was broken and her back was broken in 3 places of spine. And I kind of took over where the doctors couldn't fill in. The accident happened August 28th. I had her back walking again. Maybe that March.
I'm on, y'all need to give me a break because my blood pressure is real high. I keep telling y'all, leave me alone.
The Green Man Challenge is all about generational health. We trying to make 10K of a day a bare minimum, you heard? 10K a day of vitamin A, the bare minimum. What? In fact, as the divine soil, we trying to turn you into a plant. We want the various chlorophylls to be in your blood 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We want you to feel the benefit of what it feels like to build a circulating pool of pigments. A circulating pool of pigments. Now, you've never, ever felt your body with a full bloodstream of pigments 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. This is a brand new level of health to reach, brand new level of mental health and cognitive ability. Pass these seeds on. The Green Man. Yeah. And then there's that. We're going to make sure that your insides are clean.
Supply and demand. Demand is the desire consumers have for a good or service. The more people who want a good or service, the higher the demand for it. Supply is the total amount of a good or service available for consumption. Supply and demand have a big impact on the prices of product.
Time is money. You are what you buy. What are you spending your time?
That name is Nail, man.
I knew this day would come, brother. Once you had sent me that 36-page, well-written treatise, I knew the drugs had worn off. I had to be as critical as possible so that maybe you would leave all this alone.
See, we could leave all of that in the past, man. All I want to know is, does 1 times 1 equal 2, man?
You see, you just couldn't leave well enough alone, could you, Terrence? You know you can't just go around rewriting mathematics, right? It's not for us to do, Terrence. I have to get rid of you once and for all.
You ain't gonna kill me, man.
Oh, I am going to. Because there's only room for one black genius at a time, Terrence. And that black genius is gonna be